This video is brought to you by Squarespace. It's basically a tradition at this point, but I want to find out if you can beat the entirety of Super Mario Bros. Wonder backwards. The premise is simple. We start at the end of a level and try to get to the beginning. So of course, we start with none other than Welcome to the Flower Kingdom. There's nothing out of the ordinary here, although you'll notice that these levels don't technically have flagpoles at the beginning. That's because a proper level editor doesn't exist yet, so the modder that put this together, Adamzero, simply added a Wonder Seed at the beginning of each level. This gives us the exact same desired effect. Next was Piranha Plants on Parade and Scram Skedaddlers, both of those being pretty easy. This brings us to the open world section of World 1, which means we can pick and choose what to play. I started with Hurry Hurry. This level was kind of funny as it made the stage even easier than before. Then was Here Come the Hoppos. I used the parachute cap a few times to wall jump up this pipe. This is one of those tricks that we'll be using a ton for this challenge. As for the other levels that were easy, these include Bull Rush Coming Through, Wonder Token Tunes, Swamp Pipe Crawl, and Angry Spikes and Sinkin' Pipes. Mountaineering was surprisingly difficult because of the grind rails. They kept forcing me in the wrong direction, and trying to jump in the opposite direction is easier said than done. If you land on the bottom of a rail grind, you'll be launched forward. It was really funny watching Wiggler run to the ending all on his own, although we're not really racing him this time, so it doesn't matter how long we take. After some attempts, I figured out what I needed to do. If you manage to jump immediately after landing on the top, you can get across with some help using the parachute cap badge. Then moving on to Pipe Rock Plateau Palace. The enemies seem to get in the way a little bit more backwards, but otherwise, World 1 could be completed. The only level that I tried that couldn't be done was Wall Climb Jump 1. And that's because we're blocked by the ground, and believe me, this will not be the last time this happens. But who cares, because we made our way to Petal Isles. Leaping Smackerel was very easy, and so was Dolphin Kick 1. The culprit, however, is Robert Cove. Right at the beginning, we're trapped in this pit with nowhere to go but up. Thankfully, the parachute cap is a fantastic badge as it allows us to scale up any wall we want to, so after scaling up the wall for what felt like forever, I climbed my way up and at him, and got stuck. At the checkpoint, we've hit a complete dead end. We can't pass under any of the platforms, and this level is required to make progress in the game. So, is this it? Is the challenge already over? Well, I have an idea. If you haven't seen speedruns of Mario Bros. Wonder yet, the game is already incredibly broken. There's skips and Petal Isles that allow you to bypass Worlds 2 and 3 completely. These are done using 2 players, and the general idea is to warp one of the players out of bounds and have that player walk on the outline of the hub world to skip it. However, this skip is generally used after completing Bluebird Roost, which is literally the next level I have to play. So I'm one stage away from this exploit. But here's the thing, this trick works because Mario walks down this outlined path while the second player is in a mid-air jump. And there's an outlined path in this area too, so maybe I could create the same exploit in a different area? After figuring out the steps and timing, I somehow managed to pull off the exploit. I don't think I discovered this particular spot, but most people never need to do this. And also, I quickly learned how awful this trick is. There's 2 mistakes you can make with this exploit: walking out of bounds or back into the bounds. You may think that Mario just needs to walk across the light blue part of the water. Yeah, no. The hitboxes make no sense because, well, you're not supposed to be able to walk here to begin with. I'm basically walking on a tightrope that I can't see, and messing up means starting over from the beginning. The only way I can really get across is with a lot of trial and error. I have to figure out where it's safe to walk, and the only way to do that is to make tons of mistakes. It is at least nice that the exploit is consistent to pull off with practice, but this island is huge and filled with sharp turns. Making mistakes was really easy to do. I mean, just look at how many turns are on both sides of the island. So I had nothing else to do but keep trying, and was getting more and more frustrated the better I got at it. Which I know sounds weird, but the reason for that is because getting a good attempt takes a while. I'm literally flicking my joystick to ensure my movement isn't bad. And this is around when I contacted Isay, because this guy is basically a genius when it comes to breaking Mario games. He showed me a clip of someone trying another route that got him to World 6. So I was like, ooh, that's what I want, skip more of the game. and I started to mess with that exploit for about 10 minutes until realizing that I don't have enough Wonder Seeds to even enter World 6. So I went back to the original island, and this time I was practicing on the left side. I realized that it's slightly less wavy and also seemed to have more generous hitboxes. So I just kept at it, and slowly started to figure out what spots were safe and which spots weren't. It was getting to the point where I had to mark down where I kept falling so I could remind myself where the bad spots were. That is how hard it was to tell. I literally had to make these psychotic guides to help. But eventually, after much trial and error, I got across to the other side. Now's the time to celebrate, right? Well, I should have expected that. I guess I didn't get quite far enough for that to work. So I got to the other side again and actually got fully across. Look at that! Bluebird Roost is right there! Oh man, it's close enough that I can taste it now. But then, I got stuck on the island right before it. Oh, that was a painful mistake. Also, for some reason I wasn't allowed to jump. Man, I have no idea what's going on now. I have nothing else to do but to try once again. The hardest part I learned was this top left corner, as it seemed to work differently compared to the other sections. At the beginning, I was trying to stay in the light blue area, but once you get to a certain point, you need to basically be on the shore while not walking back in bounds, or you'd just fall. But then, it happened. I got across to the level. Yes, I made it! But, wait, huh? Hold on, I still can't jump? And I can't select the stage? Look at this scenario. Luigi is somehow trapped underground with only his head sticking out, and I'm just stuck here. At this point, I had no idea what to do, so I tried switching to one-player mode, and all that happened was that I warped back to Mario. But I wasn't ready to give up yet. Not after all that effort. The only issue now was the fact that I couldn't jump, so I went ahead and started jumping more while walking on the edge to ensure I wouldn't sink into the ground too much. This made the beginning part a lot harder, as I kept falling out of bounds, so instead I would just walk all the way up until the straightaway part. Then I would just jump and get out of the water, and it made this straight section easier. However, the hitboxes are completely different when you're above the water. Yeah, seriously, the hitboxes change if I'm slightly inside the water or above the water. So I walked farther out into the water, and I found I could just walk across the entire stretch up until this part at the end where I fell through the floor. So on the next try, I got across that gap and then fell through the floor in another section, which means if the level can be accessed, I just need to find all these invisible holes. I got another attempt in, and this time I'm completely above the ground. There's no reason now that I should sink down again, but as soon as I get to the island, my head is sticking out yet again. While yes, I am on the wrong island, I think I kind of have an idea of what's happening. Since we're not supposed to be able to access this level yet, I think the level geometry is only partially loaded in. In between these two dots basically determines if I'm allowed to be above the level or not. So while we can technically walk on it, we're not able to jump because the actual level is probably hiding underneath the hub world in reality. It's a common tactic used in games to load things in different states. Like, just watch any episode of Boundary Break and you'll understand what I'm talking about. I wanted to try it a few more times and I just wasn't having any luck. At this point, I was getting ready to give up and say the challenge can't be done. But of course, because this is me, I was overthinking the problem by a landslide. The answer I was looking for wasn't in the hub world. No, it was hiding in Robert Cove. Yes, the pathway is still blocked, but there's another option I can try to get past this obstacle, and that, of course, is multiplayer. This requires 3 people, and the idea is pretty simple. Put one person in the water slightly off camera, have another near the checkpoint flag to hold the camera in place, and then turn the third person into a ghost. Aim that ghost towards the character off screen, and bada bing, Luigi is in the water. So now I can turn the other characters into ghosts and get past this obstacle with no problems, meaning that we can actually continue on. So after all that, we're finally going into World 2, and things started off pretty smoothly. I breezed through Bluebird Roost, Out My Way Valley, Pokepeed Pass, Puzzling Park, Pole Block Passage, Cloud Cover, Floating High Jump 1, and Up and Down with Puppy Lifts. Condarts Away had a really scary wall jump section where I had to climb up before the Condarts destroyed the walls, but otherwise it was also easy. The only one I tried that couldn't be done was Wall Climb Jump 2, because the bridge platform blocked us off. and there doesn't seem to be a workaround with multiplayer. But then came Fluff Puff Peak's Flying Battleship, our first auto-scroller. For the auto-scrollers, we decided to turn off the cameras for the mod so I could just discover if clearing the levels as they were was possible. But I quickly ran into a big barrier. There is no way to blow up these bricks, and I didn't have a way to activate the fireworks. My first idea was to use Bubble Mario to activate them, but of course they just turned into a coin, and I don't know why I thought anything else would happen, like duh, that's gonna happen. So that's when I busted out multiplayer again, and tried a similar strategy to use a ghost to get underneath the platform. After a couple of tries, I managed to get the strat to work, which is great because this was another stage I wasn't allowed to skip. So we had enough Wonder Seeds to try the final level, Fluff Puff Peak's Palace. This one, however, had another blockage, a gold pipe that would normally require you to stand on so that it'll go down. However, even with a multiplayer strat, there wasn't really a proper gap to make this work at all. So does this mean the challenge is over again? Well, of course not, because we can use the Petal Isles exploit once again to skip World 2 and make our way to World 3. After spending about 10 minutes finding the right spots, I managed to make my way across and get into a level! Finally, I got this exploit to work properly. In Petal Isles, I knocked out Swimming and Downpour Uproar pretty easily, which means we have enough seeds to get into World 3. Things started off pretty nicely with an empty park, the Hoppy Cat Trial, Unreachable Treasure, and Crouching High Jump 1. But then came the Midway Trial. Once again, we're stopped by the ground without any conceivable way of getting around. I tried both pipes, and even with multiplayer, I couldn't find a way around this. And that's a problem because, once again, this level is required to move forward with World 3. So that means we're gonna go back to Petal Isles again, right? Wrong! Instead, we're gonna do some super goofy skips in the World 3 hub using the same exploit. In order to pull this off, we need to keep Mario on this tile, and then run Luigi down to the corner. Jump and pause midair as usual, and using the same process as before, Luigi warps out of bounds. Now the goal this time is to actually get to the Captain Toad pipe, as that'll take us to World 4. However, I'm not able to jump for some reason, and after several tries, could not clip myself towards the pipe. However, another exploit was found for this very specific reason where I was able to jump in this area. And to do that, I just need to pause when Luigi just finishes running down this path, and for whatever reason, that lets him jump. So finally, we can clear the jump and get across. I talked to Captain Toad to celebrate, and then I warped us to World 4. God, this entire challenge so far has just been one wall after another, and we're somehow walking through all of them. But anyway, we were able to try Rolling Ball Hill and Rubber Run, and both levels were pretty easy. But wait, oh no, we're stuck behind another wall. Normally, you need to hit 3 question mark blocks in the sand to open this wall, but right now, we are literally trapped inside this room. Is there anything we can do to escape? Well, look, don't ask me why that worked. I'm just playing a video game over here. So from there, I played a bunch of simple levels. These included Pipe Park, our mods on the roll, Raise the Stage, and the Desert Mystery. Parachute Cap 2 at first seemed like it couldn't be done. There's piranha plants all over the platforms, and while I can turn them into coins using bubbles, the main issue was this hole in the ceiling. It's perched just awkwardly enough that I can't get myself up. Wall jumping is incredibly hard because it's easy to bonk your head and lose all your momentum. So I tried using a few bubbles to build up height, and while it kind of worked to an extent, I wasn't getting enough height to actually get up there. But after like 20 minutes, I accidentally took a plant out with a bubble and turned it into a coin, and that led me to trying the wall jumps again. And that is when this happened. Oh my god, I'm astonished I was able to get up here. After that, I just needed to be careful around the plants, and past the checkpoint, I needed to do a few well-timed bubble jumps to get across the gap. But that confirms that this one is actually possible, which is insane. Next, I tried Crouching High Jump 2, and again, I'm stuck at a bridge I can't pass. But interestingly, there's a donut block on the right that I could potentially use to ghost my way to the other side. The only problem is Daisy has to stand on the donut block, Mario Mario has to move so she's off screen, and then I have to ghost with Luigi and touch her before she falls to her death. Doing all this by myself wasn't gonna work, clearly. But thankfully, Carl was here to save the day. This took us a few tries, but we actually managed to warp underneath. But then Luigi launched himself back up. Okay, fine, you know what? We did it again, and this time Carl ground pounded as soon as we warped underneath. Because of that, we were able to get across, which is awesome. But next was this massive wall to climb up. It didn't seem like there was going to be a way to get up there, even with the crouch jump. But after trying a bunch, I somehow got up? Like, I genuinely don't know how I did it, but I used the cursor and somehow made my way up to the top. So Luigi ghosted up to get up there as well, and then we just finished the level. Again, another insane one. At this point, all I've got to do is farm a bunch of purple coins so I can get the rest of the Wonder Seeds I need to unlock the last level in World 4. So after doing that and also finishing Bouncy Tunes, I had enough purple coins to buy the last Wonder Seed I needed and moved on to the last palace. This is it. I just need to clear this level and I can move up. Oh no. This is really bad, because compared to the first 3 worlds, I actually have to finish this palace or the game won't count it. I busted out multiplayer, but there's not really a good spot to use the ghost exploit. That is, until I managed to find this ridiculous strategy. By standing in these spots and ghosting, you're actually able to clip underneath and continue the level. This only works because Mario controls which parts of the stage are considered off-screen and which are safe to stand on. It's absolutely crazy that this worked at all. But after that, the level's easy, which means we can actually get to World 5. I cannot believe how long this has all been able to be stretched out. But first, I needed to tackle Petal Isle's flying battleship, and it was a fun one to do. I didn't have the clouds to begin with, so I needed to very carefully jump across and damage boost off these fire geysers. After that, there were tons of clouds and the level was pretty simple. Then I needed to get a couple more Wonder Seeds in Petal Isles and quickly knocked out Nostra Lair, which means we can officially move into World 5. Once in World 5, Tailly's Toxic Maze, Trot and Piranha Plants, and Beware of the Rifts was pretty easy, but an uncharted area was looking pretty grim. We have yet another sideways pipe that we can't enter, and how appropriate too that it's raining on us.
What's the matter?
What's the matter? Dude, I'm literally stuck here and can't continue on. I even tried clipping out of bounds with Luigi, and while I was able to do that and walk down the staircase, it doesn't really matter because the levels won't be unlocked or accessible. So that confirms that it is unfortunately not possible to beat Super Mario Bros. Wonder backwards, despite how far we managed to get. My last-ditch idea was to clip into World 6 using the Captain Toad location. I figured that maybe I could go out of bounds here and drop down to World 6, but after some tries, Luigi never clipped out of bounds. But for fun, I'm going to try out the rest of the levels that I missed, because why not, right? Diving back into World 1, I tried out Bull Rush Express and was immediately blocked off. I wasn't even able to enter this pipe, and even if I could, the level normally has poison that rises to the very top, so either way, I would have been screwed. Roller Koopa Derby was pretty simple though, and so was Springs in the Twilight Forest. Parachute Cap 1 was also possible, but had a pretty tight jump. I needed to wall jump my way up here using the parachute for momentum, and you only have just enough room to wall jump before dying. After that, we didn't have much luck with the rest of World 1. Cosmic Hoppos doesn't work because we're once again stopped by the Brown Bridge platform. Jet Run 1 can't be done because the jumps are too spaced out for us to be able to get across. And Pop-Up Hoppo was a surprisingly interesting one. With the elephant suit, I could whack the Hoppo, but couldn't get quite high enough to go over the steps. There were a few instances where it got a little extra height, but never enough to get over the first hurdle. So I tried using the Add Exclamation Blocks badge to see if extra platforms would get added, and nothing changed of course. So then I tried the Crouching High Jump badge to possibly launch it into the air, but I just got bonked instead. I even tested the Grappling Vine, and of course it didn't collide with Hoppo at all. Don't know why I tried it, just figured I might as well. So unless there's some other method, this level is not possible backwards. Oh, and if you're curious about the arena stages, well, we'll always get blocked off since you're supposed to defeat the enemies to make progress. So that was about it for World 1, now to try out the rest of World 2's levels in Fluff Puff Peaks. You might think that jump, jump, jump would be impossible. It's a time-based level where you have to run with the platforms to the beat. But that's where this stage gets kinda quirky. If you fall into the pit, well, instead of dying, you're sent to this yellow pipe. and that yellow pipe takes us back to the beginning, which is exactly where we wanted to go anyway. Countdown to drop down was also easy, and cruising with linking lifts was really fun. At first, I had no idea how to get across because the gap was so big, so I tried adding the safety bounce badge while also bouncing off these birds. This worked for a little bit, but then came this next section. The jumps here were very far apart, and the safety bounce wasn't quite working. That's when I switched to the floating high jump. Not only did I have higher jumps, but since I would float down, it allowed me to be a bit more precise with my landings, which was really important for this level, because most of the platforms I had to work with were very tiny. So after a few tries, I cleared the stage. All that was left was kick it out my way and zip go round, and both of these were a piece of cake. So outside of the arena stage that also isn't possible, we can move on to World 3, Shining Falls. The anglefish trial is impossible because we're stopped by this sideways pipe, but then things get spicy with the sharp trial. Normally, you use a bamboo platform and play the stage like it's an auto-scroller, but we don't have access to that, and this isn't actually an auto-scroller, meaning that I can still try to get across without using it. The only problem is most of the platforms are spikes and the gaps are huge, so getting across is gonna be insanely hard. My first idea was to use the safety bounce. This allowed me to clear the first huge gap, but that was the least of my worries. After that was another big gap, and the only thing waiting for me was a bunch of spikes. So I got a couple of elephant suits and realized I was gonna need to damage boost my way through this. This miraculously worked and actually got me all the way to the checkpoint, but believe me, this is where the real challenge is. To get through this, I need to clear several sections that are filled with spike platforms. I can still damage boost to some extent, but this section is a lot longer than the other one, so that's only gonna work for so long. Now thankfully, this bulb spawns a question mark block, which has a mushroom in it, so I don't have to keep retrying from the very beginning. But the big issue was that I could not make enough progress without dying to a pit or spikes, which led me to unironically using a fairly lousy badge, the All Elephant Power. That's because I can get an elephant suit for 2 damage boost hits. But even still, this just wasn't enough to get across. I was really starting to think this couldn't be done, until I realized I could try this with the bubble flower instead. So that's when I tried this. Yahoo! Yahoo! Ah, gotta love the good old bubble power-up. I moved on to the Sugar Star trial, which was painless, and then we've got the final trial. It was immediately looking like it was gonna be a hard one to get through. First off, the grind rails are facing the other way, so I need to consistently make precise jumps to go the opposite direction. The first hard bit comes with this grind rail that shoots straight up into the air. You fly up and grab the rail on top of it, but there's a tiny opening that we need to squeeze through. After some attempts, I found that by ground pound canceling and using the parachute cap, that gave us just enough space to get through this part. After that, it was just a lot of parachute jumps and fighting against the current. So I managed to make it to the checkpoint and was confused on what to do next. I jumped across these clouds only to find grind rails pointing down, and I also wasn't able to reach the other side. So I tried some other badges like the floating high jump and even grappling vine with no luck. The safety bounce got us across, but since I couldn't also use the parachute cap, it made climbing up virtually impossible. Then I took my attention to the storm clouds. After discovering an invisible block and also using the Add Exclamation Blocks badge, I was able to reach the first cloud and bounce off it, which led to nothing. So I switched to the spring badge and was able to jump off the following cloud, but wasn't even close to the one after that. So after messing with all these badges, it was clear to me that the bubble was the one thing that could deal with this trouble. After tons of practice, I eventually got a run where I bubble jumped really far to the right and then turned around and bubble jumped all the way to the left. By some miracle, I didn't mess up any of the jumps and actually got myself up and managed to clear the stage. All that was left at this point was Watery Wonder tokens, Timer Switch Climb, and Timer Switch Dash, and they were all super easy. And that wraps up World 3, so on to World 4. Blooms of the Desert Skies and Valley Full of Snoodles were pretty simple. And then there's Flight of the Blooms, which was a super interesting level to tackle. After the checkpoint, there's a pipe that you go through, and a bunch of blooms are floating away from you. This is actually the best case scenario because the gap is massive, but I kept getting bounced back from the blooms. I tried a few badges and wasn't sure what to do until I busted out the elephant. With this, I could break blooms that got in the way, while at the same time bounce on the ones below. It took a couple of attempts, but I was actually able to get across this huge gap, despite how scary it was trying to survive. After that, I had to make a few more jumps that seemed impossible, but since I had the safety badge equipped, I was either saved from that, or another bloop was in just the right spot so that I could survive. This level was terrifying, but also super fun to complete. Color Switch Dungeon, on the other hand, couldn't be done because we're stopped by another brown bridge without any options to use multiplayer ghosting, and Secrets of Shova Mansion couldn't be done either because I wasn't allowed to go back through this door due to a lack of a floor. I tried the Add Exclamation Blocks badge again to see if maybe a floor would spawn underneath the door, and of course it doesn't. Moving on to Ninja Jump Party, this was one of the strangest levels I played. First off, there's no lights or anything because we can't get the Wonder Seed, so it's ominously dark and quiet. But even weirder, we can just pass through these walls? Why the hell do they just open up for us? That makes no sense because you normally need flower coins to open them, but I guess the game doesn't care if you're on the other side. But even stranger than that, at the end of the level, there's an invisible wall that stops us in our tracks for seemingly no reason whatsoever. So because of that, the level is impossible. Man, what a bizarre stage to play backwards. But to finish things up strong, Invisibility 1, Treasure Vault, Floating Wonder Tokens, and Lights Out were all possible. There's also an arena stage that can't be done here, of course, but since we're finished with World 4, let's check out World 5, Fungi Mines. Light Switch Mansion was a piece of cake, but after that was a bunch of bad luck. Upshroom Downshroom can't be done because of a brown bridge barrier, and another uncharted area has nothing at the end because you normally get here from a Wonder Seed. And the same thing goes for a final uncharted area. Again, another brown bridge we can't get underneath. Grappling Vine 1 can't be done either because, you guessed it, there's another brown bridge, and there's also another arena stage that can't be done either, but the last level, Tumble House, could be done easily. And that wraps up World 5. So let's hop into World 6, Deep Magma Bog, where the Rumbas rule was pretty easy, although the drill was required for this one section. Roz in the Ruins was another interesting level to try getting through, mostly because it forced me to switch badges mid-level to make progress. First off, this jump is pretty damn big, and can't be made with the boosting spin jump badge, so here I needed to switch to the parachute cap. This made the jump possible, but only just barely, as you can see. Then I hit another checkpoint, and boy oh boy, look up there, another set of walls to climb up. So I had to take a life, switch back to the boosting spin jump, and then I could make my way up top. But even still, I had to avoid these lava enemies, which was easier said than done. After all of that, I needed to redo this level with the bubble power-up because I need to hit this bulb to move the blocks. So after some tries, I got my way back around and activated the bulb, and I was good to go. After that, though, was a big string of easy levels. These include Pull Turn Burn, Hot Hot Hot, Boosting Spin Jump 2, Jet Run 2, and Invisibility 2. Deep Magma Bog Flying Battleship was also possible, but it required some tight bubble jumps as well as 2 different areas to damage boost in. As for Wavy Ride through the Magma Tube, well, we couldn't even get into the pipe. Floating High Jump 2 can't be done either because even with damage boosting, there isn't a safe platform without falling. And Grappling Vine 2 simply has nowhere for us to vine. Spring Feet 2 can't be done either because this platform is just a little too high for us to reach, and then we have Dragon Boneyard. This was another really fascinating one because there's this massive lava section that just seems impossible. However, there's a lot of birds that I could potentially jump off of to survive. So I tried this out for quite a while, and while I could bounce off a few birds, I could not get far enough to safety. So I turned on the safety bounce badge and managed to find a pattern that could get me up this massive hill of lava, but no farther than this. So I instead tried this out with some bubble jumps, hoping it would come to the rescue. And while I could get myself a little bit farther, the main issue was that the lava on the top and bottom are too close together. And the way this trick works kind of forces me to always gain a bit of height, so no matter what I did here, I could not beat this one. Item Park and Hot Hot Rocks were super easy, but Deep Magma Bog Palace has a very tricky jump at the beginning. I wasn't sure if it could be done at first, but with a well-timed bubble jump or two and some spins, you can get a decent chunk of distance, and combining that with a safety bounce actually gets us across. After that, the rest of the stage is easy, so this is another possible one. And outside of the arena level that of course we can't beat, we are completely done with World 6 and can finish up with Petal Isles. Starting things off, it's very possible to beat Mama Mouthful, Muncher Fields, Boosting Spin Jump 1, and High Voltage Gauntlet. Missile Meg Mayhem requires a few precise bubble jumps and parachute caps, but it wasn't too bad either. But everything after that unfortunately gave us issues. Jewel Block Cave couldn't be done because we couldn't go through this pipe. Dolphin Kick 2 has these platforms that close in on you so fast that it's not possible to swim through them without getting squished. Then there's Spelunking, it's got some unpassable music blocks as well as poison that rises from the ground, and Knucklefest Bowser's Blazing Beats has another pipe that we can't pass. Now, I bet you're all curious about the final level, Bowser's Rage Stage. Unfortunately, I've got very little to report back because not much can be done here. That's not to say I didn't try though, because using some bubble jumps made it possible to clear parts of this level. In fact, I was building a bit of confidence, wondering if I could actually do it. But then I forgot that the poison lava eventually stops us, and there's nothing we can do about that. And this world, of course, has the last arena stage, which again is not possible either. And that's everything in Petal Isles, so we'll finish things up with the special worlds. And let's just say things didn't start too well. Bounce, bounce, bounce can't be done because of another pipe, and climb to the beat doesn't seem to load properly. I fell multiple times trying to find the beginning of the level, but I don't think it exists at all in this mod. Triple Threat Deluge was really cool though, because you normally have to walk on the wall to get across, but this time we just played it normally since the Wonder Flower is near the beginning of the level. And funny enough, the bouncy blocks and the pegs are the exact same thing, meaning they have the same bouncing properties. So after a bunch of tries, I figured out that using the grappling vine was the best strategy, especially for the end. There was this strange invisible wall that I couldn't get around, but the vine for whatever reason made the jump work. The only problem now is that I'm forced to grab the Wonder Seed, which traps me on the wall again. And also, the spiky balls didn't spawn for some reason, which just made me stuck here. So unless there's some weird bug or something, this level can't be beat. Pole Block Allure can't be done either because the Wonder Seed you usually get at the end makes everything disappear, including the platforms you'd need to get down. Moving on to Dangerous Donut Ride, this one can't be done because as soon as you leave the red pipe, you spawn on top of poison. Special Solar Roller isn't possible either because you're surrounded by lava with no platforms nearby. And then we moved to Special Way of the Goomba, which was incredibly annoying. I had to keep damage boosting off these thwomps while using the safety bounce badge to get across. It wasn't that hard necessarily, but one mistake meant either restarting or going back and getting suits. But once I got past most of the hard stuff, the Wonder Seed started and forced me to use it, meaning that this level can't be done. That's because there's no power-ups anywhere in this level, so even if I get the second Wonder Seed, I can't get all the way back to the beginning since I wouldn't be able to damage boost. Man, the special world has been pretty rough for us, hasn't it? But hey, Piranha Plant Reprise only has a couple of hard jumps, and after that, it was possible. That's when I tried the final Test Badge Marathon. Now I imagine that this is the stage that most of you are interested in seeing, and so was I. Can the hardest stage in the game somehow be completed backwards? Well, for starters, playing the invisible section is just as hard as it was in the original, if not a bit harder because the bloops are going in the opposite direction. But also, there was this weird bug in this mod where the invisibility went away after dying once, meaning that I can try the stage without being invisible, which was kinda cool. But even using a bubble to get up to the top of the pipe, we're stopped by yet another bridge. So yeah, we can only get through one section and that's it. But the last level I have to show you is a lot cooler. And that is the Final Test Wonder Gauntlet, and that's because it uses bubble jumping to the ultimate degree. Throughout this video, we haven't needed to do that many jumps in a row to get across big gaps, but this level in particular is a different story. It's incredibly challenging to complete backwards, and that's because there's tons of hard jumps and enemies that are really easy to run into. So what's the best solution here? Well, it's quite literally to bubble jump over the whole stage. For whatever reason, Wonder Gauntlet doesn't have a ceiling, which means that we can climb up as high as we want to. And I don't know how I did this, but I somehow got this amazing streak where I just kept going up and up and up and up all the way until the end of the stage, which means we were able to actually finish this one, which is so sick. But wait, we forgot about the Squarespace level. They're the best and most powerful place to create the slickest websites. New to Squarespace is the Fluid Engine, a next-generation website design system that makes it even easier to make a website. There's also Squarespace extensions that connect your store to vetted third-party tools to extend functionality, and the analytics page makes it easy to see who's visiting your site and where people are coming from. Last year, I put together a website for my YouTube series Bandy's Universe, and I'm still keeping it up to date because of how easy it is to manage and organize the content. So with that, go to squarespace.com/Nathaniel to save 10% 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The link is in the description. Phew! My god, was this game an adventure. We ended up delaying this video because of all the insane exploits we kept finding. It was quite a rush the whole way through, and also a lot of fun. Out of all 129 levels, only 86 were possible, which gives us a 66% success rate. It's pretty crazy how many levels couldn't be done, and also how many required insane strats to be pulled off. But with all of that, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you again soon.